You're watching Let the Quran Speak, and now we answer questions from you, our viewers. If you have a question, visit our website, quranspeaks.com. Dr. Shabir, the question is, are wives supposed to obey their husbands as per 434 of the Quran? That's the question. Very controversial question, and this verse is talked about, ad nauseum amongst Muslims, but I think it's always worth raising it again, Dr. Shabir.
When people say a verse of the Quran means something, then they're naturally talking about an interpretation, right? If there are clear words, then nobody says this means that, because they just cite the words. These are the words. So we should always be careful to distinguish between what the words actually say and what people interpret the words to mean. Okay, let's look at a contrasting example where we're dealing with clear words, and then we have to now still ask, what are the implications? But it's not what does it mean anymore, because the words are very clear. So in the book of Ephesians in the Bible, we have it very clearly stated: wives, obey your husbands. That's in a modern translation. But some still modern translations, but more so older translations would say, wives, submit to your husbands. The same statement is there in the first letter of Peter in the Bible as well. So these are like clear statements. And then one is going to wonder, okay, so what does that mean for our present time? Should women still obey their husbands given the changes in modern society and so on? So we're going two-step. One, what do the words actually say? And two, how would that apply to our present circumstance, right? Now, if the words are not so very clear, then we have three steps. First, if the words are not so clear, so what might be construed the meanings to be? So then you can have two different possibilities, three, four, many different possibilities, okay? And then, regardless of which meaning we construe to be the true meaning of what is there in the verse that is not so clear, then what does it mean for us now? What are we going to do about it? Okay, so people confuse these issues as they discuss the matter. Now, let's start with the wording. The wording, it's a longer ayah, and to cut to the chase of what we need to discuss, there are two crucial places in the ayah. One is at the beginning where it says, "Ar-rijalu qawwamun 'ala an-nisa bima faddala Allahu ba'dahum 'ala ba'd wa bima anfaqu min amwalihim." Men are caretakers of women. I'm translating the word qawwamun, which is going to be a disputed word now, or the meaning is going to be disputed. But let's, for the flow of meaning, let's say caretakers. Ar-rijalu qawwamun 'ala an-nisa. Men are to be caretakers of women. Bima faddala Allahu ba'dahum 'ala ba'd, because of what or the way in which God has given more favors to one person over another person. وَبِمَا أَنْفَقُوا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. And by reason of the fact that they spend out of their wealth, meaning that the men spend out of their wealth. In the context, obviously, spending out of their wealth in favor of the women. Okay? So that's one crucial part. Now, later on in the verse, it says, فَالصَّالِحَاتُ قَانِتَاتٌ حَافِظَاتٌ لِلْغَيْبِ بِمَا حَفِظَ اللَّهِ. So the righteous women are those who, qanitat, they are obedient. حَافِظَاتٌ لِلْغَيْبِ بِمَا حَفِظَ اللَّهِ. They guard in privacy that which God would want them to guard, or that which God is himself guarding. Okay, so the first part, qawwamun, which I've translated as caretakers, does it mean that men are to be leaders in the household? It could have that sort of meaning, because qa'im could have the meaning of one who is taking charge of something, one who is a leader, one who is doing something. There are other words for leaders like qa'id and so on. So that could be a meaning, that they're a leader in the household, but it's only one possible meaning. It could be that God is placing on men the responsibility by the fact that God has given more favors to them in terms of financial wealth, and they have the ability to spend on their female folk, that God is giving them that responsibility. So rather than to be stating this as a statement of what should be the case, God is stating this as what happens to be the case now in that present society the way it is. So then that opens up the question, what do we do about it in our modern times? Can this change? And if that's how we understand the verse, then we can see, yes, it can change, because it's not a statement of how it should be. It's just a statement of fact the way it was at the time. Now, as for the other part that says فَالصَّالِحَاتُ قَانِتَاتٌ, the righteous women are obedient. Now, this verse is, on the whole, is not really only about husbands and wives, because it's speaking about men in general and it's speaking about women in general. So salihat would be righteous women, not necessarily wives. Many righteous women are not married, or they may be divorced or widowed, but they're still righteous women, and there's nobody to obey but God. So qanitat, they are obedient, could primarily mean that they are obedient to God. In fact, that is the primary meaning of this particular word in the rest of the Quran. Nowhere else in the rest of the Quran does this word mean that a woman is obedient to her husband. In fact, the Quran says, "Kullu lahu qanitun." Everything in the heavens and the earth are qanitun. This is the plural, the masculine plural, because masculine plural will include both men and women. Qanitat is definitely female. So everything, male, female, everyone, person or thing, everything is obedient to God. Same word. So qanitat here could mean that the women are obedient to God, or it could be that they're obedient to their husbands or to their parents, or it's not specified. So you cannot take...
So what about the rest of the verse then?
The rest of the verse I would take as not necessarily about men and women in marriage, but men and women in general, and how the society should deal with men and women. So the first part, where it says, "Ar-rijalu qawwamun 'ala an-nisa," men are to be caretakers of their female folk, I would see that this is being addressed to the Muslim community to make sure that the men are taking care of their women folk. And out of the wealth that God has put in their possession, they should be spending on their women folk. So men should be responsible for maintenance, for alimony payments, and all of these different things that we know from a modern society. Now, elsewhere in the Quran, it is interesting that sometimes men are referred to as the bu'ul, plural for Baal. Baal means Lord, Lord of their wives. So women refer to their husbands as Lord, just as we find in the New Testament in the letter of Peter, that Sarah referred to Abraham as her Lord. And the term Baal in the Quran, meaning Lord, also is what people use to refer to their false deities from the Quranic perspective. Their Baal, right? Their false god. So this would seem to mean that men have a certain priority over women. At least it should be addressed in this way. And elsewhere in Surah Al-Baqarah, in the second chapter, it says that God has given a degree to men over women. وَلِلرِّجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةٌ. So what does that degree mean? So all of this requires some further discussion and exploration. But the bottom line is that there is no clear statement in the Quran, as we have found in the Bible. Nothing wrong with the Bible for this purpose. We're just looking at the distinction between a clear statement and a non-clear statement. So we have clear statements in the Bible that the woman is to be subjected to or to obey her husband. And in the Quran, we have some things to think about here. What does it mean to say that men are caretakers of their women folk? What does it mean to say that women are obedient? Does it mean obedient to their husbands necessarily, or to God in particular, definitely, and maybe to their parents, and who else? It's not specified. And what does it mean that men have a degree over women? Does it mean they have physical strength more? They can run faster? What does it mean exactly? And does it mean that they're stronger at fending off enemies so they can take care of their women folk, and so they have a greater degree of responsibility? And what does it mean to address your husband as Lord? Does it mean that in archaic language that this is what women generally did, but they don't necessarily have to do that today? And if they want to do that today, should the flip side not be appropriate? Shouldn't men also address their women folk respectfully, like with words like madam? Or if Lord literally means sir, actually. In ancient language, what people use the term Lord to mean on a human level, except when they're speaking to God, it means the same as sir in our modern language. So if a woman is to address her husband as sir, shouldn't the husband also address his wife as madame, to be on par with the modern egalitarian society that we're all part of. So all of this
So where does
requires...
that leave us now, Dr. Shabir? Because now we have these verses which seem to suggest, right, on the face of it, that men are, have a degree over women. They're protectors or caretakers of women. And then on the other hand, we're living our lives, right? So what do we do as we go about our lives, as we get married? What should the relationship look like?
Yeah, so I think these things need to be sorted out ahead of time. People need to be clear what interpretations they're following. And so if one is following a classical interpretation, one would insist, men have the degree of authority over their wives, the men are the head of the family, and the men are the heads of their families, and the wives have to obey their husbands, and so on. Of course, with limitations.
These are the common classical interpretations.
Yes, classical interpretation. So if one is following that, then that's how one would be constrained, and the family should agree that that's what we're following. But if they're following some modern interpretations, like some of what we have tried to explain on this show, then they should agree that, okay, we will live in an egalitarian manner, and we will decide things together through mutual consultation, as the Quran also recommends. And, some issues you decide, some issues I decide. So we give and take, and we listen to each other and cooperate in our marriage.
Mm-hmm. But you see how it poses a disadvantage to the woman, because now she has to fight against the entire corpus of the classical tradition, right? And that's difficult, because these scholars from the classical tradition are so respected and admired, and you cannot question their authority, right?
Yes, I grant that. And of course, the difficulty is compounded if you leave the discussion for later. If this discussion is done ahead of time and it's fixed in a prenuptial agreement, then it's the battle is at least gone past us, and we enter into the marriage on a clean slate. Yeah.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Dr. Shabir, thank you.
You're welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Muslim Media Hub, the new home of Let the Quran Speak.
Here we spread positivity and good. We help people experience the beauty of Islam and help them appreciate and understand Muslims.
This beautiful building we purchased at cost $2.3 million.
Yeah, we've already raised a third of that money, and with your help, inshallah, we can pay off the rest.
So we're looking for people who can give $1,000 each. If you can be part of the select group, that's amazing.
Otherwise, just please give whatever you can. Every dollar counts.
It's our collective responsibility to share the message of Islam with our fellow human beings. Please help us continue this good work.
It's a sadaqah jariyah, something that will continue to be a benefit to the Muslim community long after Safiyyah and I are gone.
Please support our work at muslimmediahub.com.
Your support is zakat eligible and tax deductible.
May Allah bless you and your loved ones today and always. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.